Yeah, the messaging was, hey, we destroyed and vaporized al-Qaeda, but they're back. I'm curious your thoughts. Did we really destroy them when we were there, or did we just push them into new territory and out of that region until they had time to come back?
You know, we never defeated al-Qaeda. We hurt them badly. When we went through bin Laden's documents, I found numerous reports of al-Qaeda talking about how they support the Taliban, how they help build the Pakistani Taliban, how they helped write the Pakistani Taliban charter, how they kind of got a little upset when they perceived the Pakistani Taliban, which, by the way, is just the Afghan Taliban on the other side of the Duran line or the border. How they were upset and ordered the Pakistani Taliban leaders to not poach al-Qaeda leaders, things like that. So they never were defeated. It didn't happen. Remember, President Bush had like a piece of paper and crossed names off, and it was 75% killed of al-Qaeda's top leadership. Then President Obama did something, and another 66% were killed. And then, you know, how many times are we going to say that al-Qaeda is, and then I just sort of mocked this. We used the D word when it came to al-Qaeda.
Disrupt, dismantle, and defeat al-Qaeda.
Decimated, degraded, defeated, done. But that's how they've been described. And that was never the case. Even when President Trump signed the Doha agreement with the Taliban, you had Secretary of State Mike Pompeo saying, well, the Taliban is going to destroy, yet another D word, al-Qaeda. And I haven't tracked a single raid that the Taliban have done against al-Qaeda.
Yeah, why would he say that? I mean, where in the history of the relationship between the Taliban and al-Qaeda has that been the case?
It's wishful thinking. It exists. This is not a Republican issue or a Democrat issue. This is a foreign policy issue where we don't, and you said it at the outset, we don't understand our enemy. Meanwhile, al-Qaeda is running training camps in 34 Afghanistan's provinces, safe houses, madrasa and for religious schools in 5 provinces, a weapons storage depot in Panjshir province. This isn't me telling you this. This is the United Nations Security Council's Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team. That was their last report in February. And other groups, like I described earlier, are also running training camps. This is all part of al-Qaeda's network. And by the way, one of the ways I was able to track what the Taliban, what their goals and intentions were, was reading them on Voice of Jihad. It was their website. They published it in 5 languages. You know how many languages we published information on in Afghanistan? In 2. How are the Taliban able to do that? Absolutely. Like, you know, it shows how organized they were, how committed they were to their cause. And they told us about what their intentions were. The Taliban do what the Taliban want to do. They impose their harsh version of Sharia. They're true believers. You know, people say, oh, well, they care about international legitimacy, but they don't. They'll take whatever legitimacy we give them, and we gave it to them with the Doha Agreement, and then by abiding to that Doha Agreement and the Biden administration's withdrawal. It's a nightmare in Afghanistan, and it's worse than it was pre-9/11. Sure, we are far better at security here in the United States internally, but the Taliban control 100% of Afghanistan. There is no Northern Alliance 2.0 that we can rely on for intelligence and support them and, you know, to get targeting information. Afghanistan has become a black hole, and when you give an enemy like al-Qaeda the time, space, and security to recruit, to train, to indoctrinate, to plot attacks, I don't want to find out what happens next when they have this time and space. And we're not just there in Afghanistan, we're there in Syria now as well.
Can you imagine if we had a time machine and we could go back to just right after 9/11 and sit down with the Bush administration and be like, listen, if we do this on the plan that you want to do, 20 plus years from now, we're actually going to be equipping, arming, and housing the same al-Qaeda organization in Afghanistan through U.S. equipment, resources, and infrastructure that we built. They would look at you and say, you're out of your fucking mind. There's no way that's going to be the case.
And yet here we are.